Welcome back to the Better Everyday podcast, where we are unlocking our best self one episode at a time. My name is David Garcia, and this is my beautiful wife, Grace Garcia. And today marks episode 21.
Wow.
Yep, 21 weeks going strong. Our plan, honestly, at least my plan is, I'm hoping my wife can hang in there, is that we go strong up until end of November, and then December we will take off, and then January will be the start of Season 2, I guess.
Season 2. These seasons are really long.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we catch another rhythm next year.
Because that's going to be like 40 episodes.
Yeah.
I've never heard of a season being like 40 episodes long. But we're the Better Everyday podcast.
Trendsetters. We're not followers.
You're right.
No, I'm not right. I should be looking into that. But, maybe when we start meeting more podcasters, we'll start getting a better understanding.
Yeah.
And that's kind of going along with what we talked about in the last episode or 2 episodes ago about seeking counsel, seeking advice, knowing that somebody else knows better.
Yeah.
But anyways, today, I guess I wanted to start off. I guess I don't want to start off by saying that today we're talking about, but I was having a conversation. I believe it was today or yesterday. So I have this friend. I've talked about this friend before. His name is Sergio. I talk to him every single day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes Saturday and Sunday because homeboy has gotten me into Warzone, the video game. I know. Yeah. The funny thing is, like, I never thought I'd get into video games.
He was never, ever, ever a gamer, and I was so proud, and I'd like boast it. And then now I have to just stay shut and be like,
It's guy time. But anyways, so I talk to this dude every single day. I met him years back when we were working at my last job. And the way that we met, it was kind of funny. He kind of just intruded his life, or he intruded himself into my life. And he was just like, with his actions, whether you like it or not, I'm going to be your friend.
he's a great friend.
He is. And I remember like telling Grace, I'm like, dude, this guy just keeps coming. And like, I don't know what to talk about. And anyways, long story short, he ended up completing his mission. We became friends, really good friends. We started doing play dates because our kids are around the same age. And now our kids are kind of best friends because they're gaming all the time. He lives really close to Mexico. He lives close to Mexicali. So it's not like we can hang out with them, but our kids hang out every weekend.
Virtually.
Yeah, virtually. And I mean, Elijah cries for that kid whenever he can't hang out with them. But anyways, point is, I talk to this guy every single day. He's become kind of a brother. He's a really close friend. And either today or yesterday, we were having a conversation, and I don't know how it came up, but he was like, hey, I was talking to my family about you guys because we actually recently just hosted them. They're a beautiful family. He's married. They have two beautiful kids, both boys, really young. I think 6 and I want to say 4. Really young kids. We hosted them. They came over here. He wanted to take his family to Disneyland, and we did our best to be the best host possible. And I don't know if that they had never experienced like hospitality like that. Although we feel like we didn't even do that much.
Okay, I felt bad because I still had to work. And so I felt like I couldn't be the host that I'd wanted to be. Like show them around or at least make breakfast for them or whatever it was. So I felt bad. Like, oh my goodness, like I'm being such a bad host. Can't spend time with them.
Yeah, and then he asked me. He's like, hey, can I stay at your place? Like, I know you have a couple of extra rooms. And I'm like, yeah, dude, anytime.
Yeah.
And you actually made me even go like above and beyond. You made me like paint the room, make sure that it was all like nice and neat, cleaned it and everything. And so, yeah, I think we did a decent job of hosting them. And I'm assuming they haven't been hosted like that because it seemed like they were really impressed. Anyways, a couple of weeks ago, he says he was talking to his family about us and telling his family like how great we are and how blessed we are. He was telling them that, you just had some dentist work done and basically virtually like free, right? And then how God has really blessed us as a couple, financially and family. Like there's so many things. And he knows a lot of it because I talk to him every day. Like I basically tell him everything. And he says that I think it was his sister-in-law was like, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but she was like, "Are they Jews?" And he's like, "No." It's like this dude's from Canada and his parents are from El Salvador, and I think she's like Puerto Rican or Guatemalan. And she was like, "Do they serve at a church?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then apparently she was like, "Oh, that's probably why then." And when he told me that, it made me laugh because of her first comment, but second, it like not threw me off, but it kind of like made me like, I don't know, it didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And so I started talking to him about it and we started digging deeper into it. And I'm like, dude, like it's not, you can't say, oh, because I serve at a church, like my life's going to be beautiful, you know, like that's this same misconception that people have about Christianity. Like if I become Christian, my life is going to be like it.
Easy,
And this is coming from a place where, you know, sometimes it's out of desperation that finally people realize like I've tried everything in my life. I'm coming to Christ. And once I come to Christ, everything's going to be like amazing.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. I believe that your circumstances don't change. It's your mindset that starts to change because it's now being formed by God, right? So it could be the same circumstances, but things start to seem like they're going better just because you're starting to change your mentality and starting to have hope and trust in God and believing in Him, right? And so I was telling him, I'm like, there's people that serve in church that don't have an amazing life. Like, it's not just because you serve in church that you like, oh, I have the favor of God and I get everything that I want, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to talk about today because he started making me think like, how many people need to change their perspective, especially in America. And I know I always talk about the American culture, but in America, need to change their perspective of what true wealth really means, true success really means, what abundance means. Like, and what I mean by that is we talk about the hustle culture, the grind culture, like bite down on your mouthpiece and just go at it, like just do everything possible. And not only that, but then you also have the people that like they want success so bad that they're willing to step over people. They're willing to just sacrifice people, sacrifice maybe values. And we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, talking about comparison. They're willing to sacrifice maybe their family. They're willing to sacrifice things that maybe if they were actually thinking about it, they'd be like, oh, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to touch on that. Like, I guess the first question I guess we could talk about is, what is true success? What is true wealth? What is abundance? Because I believe the misconception usually, both secular and Christian, is, especially in America, you have a nice house, you have nice cars, and you have a fat bank account. And quote unquote generational wealth, where you've set up the next generations to be fine, right? So I guess now I would turn the question over to you. What do you think, or what do you believe to be true wealth, true success, true abundance?
Well, I feel like some people maybe watching this might be like, well, it's easy for you guys to say. Like from our background, it looks like we have, a beautiful home, and we do. Mind you, we're not the homeowners, but I feel so blessed to have this home. But I wonder while people are listening and while I give my response, like, well, it's easy for you to say. Like you guys have been talking about how kind of you made it on TikTok, or how God has blessed you to be a blessing. And so it seems like you guys are not struggling financially. And right now in this season, I'm not trying to like play it down. Like God has been so good to us materially. That hasn't always been the case. We talked about it in a few podcasts that we started off very rough, lots of tears. It wasn't always easy. And now I feel like it's maybe visible to some people, but you have to remember this is the fruit of a lot of years working hard, crying, and even maybe things that we didn't do that our parents did, because both of our parents, our families have been praying for us and offering and tithes in our name for their future generations. So when I'm going to speak, though, I don't want to speak of like just my season right now of living in what people think, oh, material blessings. So I hope you guys can see that, like, oh, well, that's easy for them to say right now. They're in a nice home and maybe have peace of mind when it comes to finances. Because, again, that's not always been the case, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I feel like wealth, abundance, and success for me, I think of my childhood because we didn't have it all. I never had a name brand. I remember growing up, like what was in was Abercrombie and Hollister. I never bought anything from there. Uggs, I always had the Bear Paw, the Fugs, the fake ones. I never had anything de marca. It wasn't until I was older, like maybe the end of my high school, or my parents could really afford things like that. We had many times one car where all of us would squish, like 6 of us would squish, and a friend or two. Like we would squish in a small car. But they never made me feel poor. Like I always walked like if I was a wealthy kid. And I remember even my friends around me at school would be like, oh my gosh, you guys are so rich. And I always like, oh, thank you. But we weren't. The fact is we weren't. But I think my parents never complained about where we were at. There was always joy and laughter and happiness. And my parents always served. Whether they were struggling or not, they gave to others. And so in my head, it looked like we have a lot to give. Like we have so much joy. Like we don't lack anything. Like there was never, oh, we don't have enough. Our car isn't big. We need 2 cars. Like where's the other car? There was never that like thought in my mind. I don't know if it was in their mind. You know, they didn't share that with the kids. But what I see wealth, success, and abundance to be is like peace. It's peace of mind, knowing that no matter what's going to happen, you're going to be okay. If you have negative in your bank account, like God's got you. Like don't worry. If he feeds the birds and the lilies grow, he has you. And it's having that peace, that trust in him. It's abundance is where you have abundance of joy, abundance of love, that you can love onto others and serve others, even if you yourself aren't living like a king. That is what I think abundance and success is. Like peace, reliance on God. And yeah, there's always something. God has given us many different blessings, I think. Like different people have different talents, different blessings, different whatever. And you always have something to give and offer to people. That's what I think abundance is, when you don't hoard it and you just freely give what's been given to you. That's what I'd say.
I'm going to push back a little bit. There's one thing that really stuck to me of what you said, and I can't let it go. And it's,
go for it.
If you have a negative bank account, you still need to have peace. And after you preface this with, you know, oh, like they could say like, oh, we have it all together because like the house that we have or whatever, right? We seem like we have it somewhat together, right? I kind of put myself in those people's shoes, the ones that maybe are listening and do have a negative bank account.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of speaking for them and just like, homegirl, like come over here and have a negative bank account and see if you have peace, you know? And I truly believe like if we had a negative bank account, I don't think we'd be like, oh yeah, like this is awesome. Like we're fine, you know, like, and I believe that if we're living in success, we're living in like a more kingdom mindset type of wealth, more biblical wealth, not one of monetary, not one of possessions and material things. I think if we truly are tapping into that, then we are not living with a negative bank account. And the reason why I say that, is because I take Solomon, King Solomon in the Bible. That's the son of David, correct? Okay. So God comes to him and he basically says, almost like a genie. And I don't mean to like blasphemy or whatever, but I'm just trying to make this more relatable. Like, but almost like a genie, like you can have any wish in the world, buddy, like pick. And Solomon Could have asked for anything. And imagine anybody having a genie and first like the shock, right? And then believing that it is a genie. And then all of a sudden like, oh, you have a wish. I mean, a lot of people are going to be like, well, I want a million more wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that's a cheat code. But then if it's like, no, you only get one, what are most people are asking for? $1 million, $10 million to have unlimited amount of money. Usually. And so with Solomon, he didn't ask for that. All he asked for was wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was wisdom to be able to govern his people. And God was like, because you asked for wisdom, I'm going to give you wisdom and knowledge. And not only that, you're going to have the most riches that anybody has ever had, right?
Yeah.
And so why I'm telling this is because I truly believe if you really tapped in to the character of Jesus, to the kingdom character, the kingdom just mindset, I don't think you are living with a negative bank account, because if you are really tapping into that, then your mind is being formed to be wiser, to be a better steward. Because that's the reason why Solomon said, I want wisdom, because I want to be able to steward your people correctly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about the money. I don't care about the fame. I don't care about none of that. Like, I want to be able to do the job that you've appointed me to do, and I wanted to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm saying like, that's why I push back towards like, oh, if you have a negative bank account, like you're gonna have peace. Like, I don't think, I mean, you should have a piece of like, I know everything's gonna be okay, but at the same time, an unsettling mindset of like, what skills has God already given me right now? Yeah. That he's basically like, hey, use these skills, use these tools to be able to get out of here, because that's not where you belong. Now, I'm also not like saying, oh, like, I'm not trying to preach the prosperity gospel either. Like, oh, you're going to have like the 10 houses and the mansion and the pool and blah. Like, I'm not saying that either. Yeah. But I am saying that if you are tapped into the kingdom mindset, then you are also being a good steward, being wise, being knowledgeable, and then living in a space where you could truly say like, God's got me. Yeah. Like, I'm not worrying, because with a negative bank account, whether you like it or not, you are worrying. Nobody likes a negative bank account. Nobody likes to get insufficient fund. Nobody likes to go to the grocery store praying and begging that the card goes through. Nobody. There's no peace there. At least I don't believe so.
No, but I see it as, for example, I'm not saying like you have a negative bank account, let's say, because you're bad with money, right? Because I feel like, okay, you got yourself in that hole. That's how you said, right? That's not being wise. That's not being kingdom mindset. But I'm talking about like negative bank account, whether it can be the same as you have a bad doctor's note, right? Boom, you got diagnosed with this like disease or whatever. The negative bank account could be different scenarios. Like you thought of, I'm assuming based off of what you said, you thought of like, oh, just bad steward. But what if someone got laid off during COVID, right? And they still have kids to feed. And it's like, okay, God, I'm not being right now a bad steward. Hopefully I can get out of this situation, but it is what it is. Or God forbid, an abusive wife has to get her kids out of that home, like ASAP. And it's like, okay, my funds aren't there. Like I'm going to be rubbing two pennies together, but I know that where I'm headed is way better than my past. And I feel like peace isn't negating the fact that there's a storm. It's realizing, because yeah, you can deal, I think, with stress and like, okay, I have to get out of here. Like this survival mode, like this is time to grind, but it's knowing whatever happens right now, it's going to suck and it's going to suck hard, but the glories that are to come is going to be way better than what I am facing. That's kind of what in my head, the scenarios that played.
Yeah, I think regardless, you still need to be a good steward. Yeah. Okay, so one of the examples you just gave is a family, something happens, layoff or whatever. I mean, a wise person, a good steward, has some stuff stored up for an emergency. I mean, we haven't done a finance episode in a while, and maybe we should. But one of the things that we believe in is having an emergency fund for those kind of occasions. You should have an emergency fund for at least 3 months worth of rent and bills. So if you don't have that, then yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up, because it's not guaranteed that you'll always have a job. Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, especially with the world, how the world is right now, you don't know. at what point we're going to go into a recession, or at what point like we're going to get replaced by AI and all this stuff. Like there's so many things that we need to consider that we need to be wise about it.
Yeah.
And so the other scenario that you gave was a woman in an abusive relationship. She gets out. That one still like, okay, yeah, she doesn't have two pennies to rub together. But at the same time, like if you have the correct mindset, that's I believe that the mindset that you have could be a kingdom mindset where God's like, I've given you this stewardship. I've given you this wisdom. I've given you this knowledge, where in part, that's the peace that he gives you. Like, hey, I've given you everything that you need. You're going to be able to get out of this as long as you stay disciplined. And I think that's part of it. Just like, okay, like I'm going to do what I know I need to do. And although I don't have two pennies rubbed together, I know that the right now is going to probably suck because I'm going to have to buckle down. I got myself in this scenario. Me and God are going to get myself out of here, right? But I think it's part that. But also that's very interesting too, and that's kind of ties together with this topic that we're talking about. And I'm glad that you brought it up. The woman that is in an abusive relationship, she has to get out, and she doesn't have two pennies to rub together. One of the kingdom mindsets I think that is very important, and it's so important, but again, countercultural to the American culture, because the American culture tells you, look out for number one, step on who you have to step on, do what you got to do, follow the mainstream, be materialistic, so on and so forth, right? Kingdom mindset says plant these seeds, plant them. And so many times you see people in the Bible where they quote unquote did not have a lot, but they gave what they had and God blessed them for it, right?
Yeah.
And the American culture is like, nah, like everyone goes, always they go to, if you're on a plane, put the mask on yourself first before you put it on anybody else, right? And so this woman that is in an abusive relationship, she gets out, she has not two pennies to rub together. My question would be, how many seeds does she plant before where she can ask for help and people will be there? And that's part of the kingdom mindset. And it's you have to really watch your mindset, your intentions with this part, because some people, and what I'm talking about is generosity, being generous with what you have. It might not be just with finances. It might be with time. It might be with mentoring somebody. It might be with discipling somebody. It might be just mental capacity. It could be many different things that you're depositing into people, right? And one of the things that I know that your mom did was deposit a lot of seeds in a lot of people. And that's why there were so many faithful people to God, to the church, and to her. Like, if your mom one day was like, I need help, I know that hundreds of people would come and be like, here's how we're going to help, right? We're at her funeral, and the place was freaking packed. And it was a huge church, packed. And it's just like all these seeds that you plant. I think about also our friends, the Gomez. I think about the Clevelands. Like those people, whenever they have the opportunity to bless somebody, they do. The Gomez, especially Priscilla, our friend, is so creative, so thoughtful. Every time that she does something, she goes above and beyond, and she always like awes us, right? And those two families, I know that if they also said like, hey, I need help, they'd have a lot of people come like, hey, we got you, no problem, because of everything that they deposited. And so many people in the American culture are like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you spending like your time? Why are you spending your money? Why are you spending your resources? Why are you spending your mind capacity? Why are you spending your emotional tank? Like, why are you doing all these things? Like, you should be using that to like invest in yourself or give back to yourself or just keep building for yourself. And maybe like in 10 years down the road, then you'll be able to, but that's not the mindset of like the kingdom mindset. It's bless and help whoever you can. And it's not for the sake of one day it's going to come back to me, because we don't know. And it shouldn't matter if it does come back to us. But the beautiful thing is sometimes it does come back to us. And there's sometimes that you can forget that you bless somebody, and then years down the road, you find out, like we've like seen stories and heard stories of like, you never know who you're blessing. Sometimes they come back and they made it so big and like, hey, we want to bless you with this and that. And you're just like, I barely remember like helping you out, you know, like I didn't do it for the sake of it coming back. But I believe that's how you kind of unlock God's favor. And so I think that's also part of the kingdom mindset in regards to like prosperity and to wealth and to success. I think part of success and wealth is how many seeds have you planted? Because I believe that kind of unlocks God's favor and unlocks God's heaven over you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I definitely agree. And how you said intention matters, because people can be doing that like for the wrong reasons, right? And it's like, oh, I'm going to start planting these seeds so that God's favor is above me, or like so that I can see it in my future, whatever way that might look like. And it's God knows the heart, and that's what he sees firsthand. And so that's what he's going to judge. Like, God, look at me. Like, this is the seed. Hopefully in 10 years it comes back to me. Then that's something that, like, he loves a pure heart. And he says, right, if you get man to say, oh, thank you, job well done, like, you should be happy with that, because that's all you're going to get. And so if that excites us, which is, I think it's fine to say that's exciting and that's beautiful to see, that's beautiful to witness, and makes amazing testimonies. But that it's just a preview of what heaven looks like. And that should encourage us more when this earth passes and we get to see God face to face. And he's like, well done, my good and faithful servant. Like, what you've done, like, I've seen you, and look what I've prepared for you. And so let's just remind ourselves that, yes, those moments are beautiful and they're God given too, but it's just a preview of what's to come. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think as Christians, we're called to be generous in every aspect of our life. And I do wish churches talked more about it. And aside from finance, I think finances is easier because it's more physical, tangible. People can see it leaving and coming. But yeah, even with other aspects of our life, because some people are like, oh, right now I can't, just not in the budget for me or whatever. But it's like, no, we all right now today can start living generous lives. And I always strive to be more generous, because it's something that I don't believe it's natural to everyone. And that's okay. Like, it's not going to just people, you're not going to feel like, oh, I want to give, I'm happy to give. Some of us got it in birth. Some of us didn't. Like, I'm so jealous. Like, Melody, my little sister, like, shout out. She watches our videos. She is such a generous person. And it came natural to her. Like, I can remember since she was young, like, just giving. Me, I've never, it doesn't come natural to me. I don't think about it. Like, and I'm practicing. And I feel like as I practiced, it gets easier. But I have to remind myself, like, I have to be intentional. And that's okay. But as long as I'm intentional, again, it'll be part of kind of like speaking another love language. It's going to be part of my language. And I hope it's part of my culture. And I hope my kids can see it from me so that they can be like, okay, maybe they themselves aren't generous, but they kind of like me. My mom was. And so I want to be like her. And I want to make a difference. And I just hope that that's the legacy that I want to leave into my kids. Like, it's important to be kind. It's important to love God. And it's important to give back everything he's given you. Because yeah, God knows that wasn't my natural. I wasn't born with it, but definitely not an excuse for me. Yeah.
And also with me, it's not something that comes natural. And I feel bad because we have people around us that are very thoughtful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I almost feel bad because I'm like, I didn't do the same thing.
Yeah.
Or I don't have that same bone. And I'm like, and I sometimes I like really just like knock myself down. And I'm like, dude, like, come on, get on it. But it's just not natural to me. Like you said, there are times where like my trigger usually is like an underdog. Oh, down on my luck. Like, and I could see like potential in them. And I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I'll help them. Like, because then I kind of see myself in them and just like, I wish somebody was there when I was, like,
and
and and I'm like, I could be that person for them, like the person that I wish like those moments. Yeah, but there's like few in between. That's the saying, right? And then but like for sure, Melody, the Gomez, and the Clevelands, like definitely great examples of that for us, and I think they've rubbed off at least a little bit on us. Because I know for you, like whenever you host or you're doing something for the kids or whatever, I don't know if she listens, but you do go, yeah.
She listens. I think sometimes. I don't know.
I know that I've heard you say before, like, but Priscilla does this and this and this and this, and like I want to, like, you like get inspired by her, and you're like,
well, she motivates me, like, okay, like she kind of sets the stand, and I know she does not expect it in return, and that's what I love about her heart. That if she does something, she does it purely out of the love of her heart. It's not like, oh, if they didn't do it like me, like I wasted my time, or oh, I just like spent money for no reason. Like she does it, and you can tell that it brings joy to her. That's why she does it. But it is inspiring, and it's not like, oh, I have to do that because then I'm gonna look bad. It's not like that. Like my friends know I'm not that type of person, but it does feel nice. I'm like, I want to. What she made me feel, I want them to feel too. Like I want the kids to feel, the family to feel. And so it is inspiring. Like I'm grateful. And so now it's my turn to like give it back.
Yeah.
Cause it definitely, I think rubs off and you get excited and.
Yeah. And it's good to have those examples. Cause like I said, they're great examples of that.
Yeah.
And for us to have them close and then all of a sudden us like do things and we think like, what would the Gomez do? Or what would the Clevelands do? Or how would they do it? Like, really helps us level up that part where we're both saying like that's not really something that comes natural to us.
Yeah.
But it makes us better. And I truly believe that really starts unlocking the favor of God. Like although people might, it's really hard to wrap our minds around it sometimes, especially for certain people, like the people that are just grinders and hustlers. Like, no, all you got to do is work hard and work hard and work hard. Like that's not always the case. Like, yeah, work hard. But there's other aspects of being able to get God's favor, like, and that's part of it is generosity, and part of it is wisdom, part of it is stewardship. Like,
well, have I ever shared this story? Because the reason I love this story is because it shows a little bit about wisdom and stewardship, but also being generous, even if it doesn't make sense. But God's favor, the one with the offering. No, it wasn't the offering. Remember, I'm gonna share it and then. I apologize if you're listening to it twice. But so I read the Dave Ramsey book and I got to the part, we were reading it together, and I got to the part he says, like, don't lend money. And the proverb says it too. God says, like, don't lend money. Like you're asking for your brother for it back and then even interest.
They become your slave.
Yeah, like that's not something you want to hold against them. You ruined the friendship. And so I read that and it's like, okay, if someone's going to ask you for money and you're going to quote unquote lend it, like just give it to them as a gift. Like that is a sign of just loving them, period. If you really want to help them. And so I read that. I was so convicted. Like you guys know how I get. Like I'm so convicted. And then literally the day after, it's like Sunday service, right in the morning of service, before service starts, you're like, Grace, so someone just came up to me. They really need help. I told them all we have in our bank account is like $500 and let me know what you think. Like we always want to make sure we're united in one. And I was like, David, I told you we're not lending. I'm like, remember, Dave Ramsey says we're not lending. I'm like, so we're going to give it to them. Let's give it to them all. And I'm like, let me pray on it, whatever. Like, okay. During worship, I felt such peace. Like, just give it to them. We are going to have to, like, I think pay with our credit card for our meal that Sunday, but just give it to them. Like payday will come and we'll be fine. But for sure, I did not want to like give it to them and then ask for it back or anything like that. So after service, I told you, yeah, just give him the $500. I felt such peace. Tell him it's a gift. And I remember you told me that he was so appreciative and he was shocked that it was like a gift and we're not asking for it back. And we're like, don't worry about it. Like, you know, we love you. And literally I remember we ate Johnny Rockets and you paid with your credit card and you got a phone call saying, hey, I gave an offering to church, but I wanted to give it to you guys, like personally for you. You guys inspired me. At that time, it was a youth pastor, and they gave us offering to literally cover that week so that we wouldn't touch our credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so shocked because, again, I love this story because it shows, like, be good stewards, meaning don't be lending, don't ask for investments. Like, make sure if you give it, you have it, and you're not going to get it back. Like, that's okay. But it also shows his generosity. Like, it didn't make sense to give him everything we had in our bank account.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't make sense. But also show, like, God's favor. Like, at the end of the day, he backed us up and was like, hey, you're not going to be spending on your credit card. We're going to give you exactly what you need for that week. Like, don't worry about it. And we did not even do it, obviously expecting that. Like, we had no idea. But it just shows you how God sees the heart and how he is faithful.
Yeah.
And so I love sharing that story. It's one of my favorite stories because, again, of those 3 reasons.
Yeah. And honestly, now that you were saying that, like, yeah, God has been so good to us. Like, so good. And ever since, because I'll give you all credit. Like, you were the one that stamped that onto our family. Because I was like, I was okay with lending it to them.
Yeah.
But I knew I was never going to ask them. Like, if they gave it back, they gave it back. Cool. And if they didn't, whatever, you know? But, like, you were just like, no, if we have it, we're going to give it. We're not going to lend it. We're not going to make them our slave, you know? Like, because that's the dynamic. Like, it sounds weird saying it, but, like, that's that dynamic. One becomes the master, the other one becomes a slave. Because
and I feel like even if they have the intention of, like, oh, you know, like, if we say, okay, here. And then you're like, okay, I'm not going to ask for it back. If they don't want to give it to us, that's it. But they will have it. Like, I haven't paid them back.
Yeah.
And they might not know they're okay with it. So it's like on their conscious. Like, they're stressed about it. When I see them, is it going to be awkward? And we might let it go, but it's kind of holding them bondage.
Yeah.
It's just like, just tell them it's a gift. Like,
yeah. And so I give you all the credit because you stamped that on us. And we've had a couple of opportunities like that.
yeah.
And we've always just been like, no, here, take it. Like, it's not a big deal. And again, I think just practicing that and not only that, but seeing God like back up, I guess, our hearts, you know, like we want to practice what's written and we want to be molded by God. We want to be more like Jesus, like us going through that and then just seeing and how faithful God has been, just like, all right, you made this change. Well, guess what? Here's a blessing. Oh, you made this change. Oh, guess what? Here's a blessing.
Yeah.
And we don't do it, and you should never do it being like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to expect that. Because there's a lot of religious people that go like, if I pray 10 times today, then God's going to give me $1,000 tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and you don't get the $1,000. You're like, what the heck, God? I prayed 10 times.
And instead of getting more generous, you get more bitter or like more.
Exactly.
You become the opposite.
And it's some people almost believe, like, I guess I would call them religious, but you can call them whatever you want. Like a lot of people believe by their works, they will gain favor. And it's a crazy dynamic. And sometimes I get a little bit confused about it because, you know, faith without works is dead. But also works cannot get you the kingdom of heaven. Like you cannot work more for God's love. You cannot work more for God's favor. Like
that's why Christianity is the only religion where it has to do with the heart. Because the other religions, you can do things. But think about the first man of faith is Abraham. He didn't say, okay, I'm going to go on top of this mountain to sacrifice my son and God's going to give me a ram. He believed it in his heart that God is going to provide no matter what. He had no idea what it looked like. He had faith first. That's why he was justified. Then he showed it his faith through the action, and that's what faith does. It changes you. Faith is powerful, transforming, that it changes you to produce what's coming out of your heart. And that's what he did. Then he took the action, and then God always provides. But I feel like we are doing the actions, waiting to change, but we never change because we're doing it out of, like, our heart didn't change. And it says, like, out of our heart comes everything. So it has to be a heart think first, an intention, your reasoning, your purpose.
Yeah.
So that it is confusing of like, okay, faith without action is dead, but how does like that faith work? Or, but in my head, it makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense.
But yeah, it is so beautiful because the more you become like Jesus, the more favor comes over you. and the more fulfilling it is, really. Because again, we don't believe in being rich for the sake of just being rich.
Yeah.
We don't believe in being wealthy just for the sake of being wealthy. Do we want to have a nice house one day that's ours? 100%, but we're going on our journey. But the point is, like, to be good stewards with a kingdom mindset also means being generous with what we have. And I've seen a lot of times where we have been generous to people. And when I really look back at it, and I look back at, like, there was times where we were like insufficient funds. And it's just crazy, like, how far, like, we've come.
Yeah.
And yeah, God has been so faithful, and now we're like, I feel like, I don't know if it's bad to say, but it feels so comfortable to be generous now. Like, we literally have no worry. Like, and we don't have to talk about like everything that we've done, but like, we can even call them like little things. The little things that we've done is just like, and again, I'm going to be completely honest and transparent. Like, it's usually you. Hey, David, can I do this thing for so-and-so and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Takes me like, I'm not going to lie, it takes me like 5 to 10 seconds, but I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Sure. And it's beautiful to see that part of your heart, like, where you're being intentional of like, no. Like, I saw my mom do it. I'm going to do it too.
Yeah.
And again, it's just part of like the kingdom mindset. Like, it's not about us. It's more than just about us. We're blessed to be a blessing to others. And it's so fulfilling to get to that point of understanding that dynamic and understanding. There's a verse in the Bible, I believe it's in Matthew, that says like the mustard seed is the smallest seed, or so it says in the Bible. And it says that when you plant it, it becomes the biggest plant in the garden and eventually becomes a tree that gives life to many wildlife. And it's like, that's what the kingdom mindset is. It's just plant those little seeds.
Yeah.
And watch how like it flourishes. Like, for me, one of the most fulfilling things is to see people's lives changed, and God allowed us to be a part of that story. Like, and yeah, it just like another like thought of mine. Like, we went through hard times, and there was that one time that we asked your dad for help. We've had people around us, supporting us and stuff, but like, it was God kind of like pushing us like, hey, I've given you these resources. I've given you these tools, and it's us. We have to buckle down and we have to trust God. And we're like, we're going to go through this process. And like, it's been a somewhat of a long process, but like, to be where we are right now and to look back to where we've come from, it's just like, it's such a huge, huge blessing. And so I think that's really what the kingdom mindset is all about in regards to like God's favor. And I think that's kind of what my point was with the story with Sergio, was like, because his sister-in-law was kind of like, oh, like they serve at church, that's why they have God's favor. That's not necessarily true.
No.
You can serve at church and not have a great mindset or a great heart, and you're not going to reap anything. It's not until you start sowing and you having that right mindset where it's just like, now you're seeing the overabundance.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just for us, but it's for the people around us.
And I think that's what, well, first, thank you for the compliment. Second, I want to thank you because I don't know what it would be like if I'm like, oh, babe, I want to do this. And you're like, no. Like, that's why it's so important also to be equally yoked, because you say you hesitate, but I think always, I don't think you've ever said no, David. I mean, no, Grace. You back me up and we're in agreement and there's peace between us. Like, we don't throw it at each other. Like, we're short, or look where we would be. Look how much we would have saved if we didn't spend on, like, that has never been a conversation in this household, which is so awesome that I feel like being generous. I feel like God has called me to bless someone in that moment, and we're on board and there's peace. So thank you for always allowing me to be used by God. And I think what we were saying, that's the kingdom mindset, because the path we were going, we weren't bad people. And so I guess we could have justified saying we're Christian, we're loving God, we're doing what we're told, but the path we were in was one where we weren't good stewards. We were going negative when we didn't have to be. We didn't plan properly. We had no emergency savings. So when it was my time to be with Elijah and not work for a bit, and when you got laid off around when I got pregnant with Elijah, like, it was overwhelming and it was stressful those times. And that's where my dad helped us. And even after, a little bit after, like, we were in this home with other people and we weren't being good stewards and not saving when we should have been. And so I feel like we could have continued that path and it would have been easier, like, for sure. Maybe more stress because we were not well with when it came to paying bills and stuff. We're living paycheck to paycheck, but we were enjoying life, quote unquote, like going out to eat whenever we wanted to. If we saw something on the rack, no hesitance, like, maybe we should wait. But that's not what God wants. Like, God wants a heart change. He wants to change your mind, change your heart, change who you are. And again, it's not just so you and your family can be blessed, because he knows that as soon as you go through this process of transformation, that's when the true blessings come, when you can bless others. And so I feel like that's what's so important. It's that people just want to jump from like, okay, I'm bad with money, to B, okay, now I have a lot of money that I can give to people. But the beauty of it and what matters and what's most important is God changing your heart so you can be that kingdom mindset. Because in heaven, I mean, I don't know, but we're not going to be like, I don't know how to say it in English, like gastadores, or like just throwing things like in trash. Like, it's not like wasteful. We're not going to be wasteful. Like, that's not someone who's like if you imagine a son or a daughter of God, that's not something that you'd want to be labeled with, or if people see you like, oh yeah, they're just wasteful. Look at what they've been given and they treat it bad. They're not like being excellent and taking good care of what God has given them. And so he's trying to get you to change. But again, people want to just skip so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not going to like get there. And even if you do, because so many people of the world, we see it all over social media, we see it in the news, do get the finances. And it doesn't change their heart. And so they go through anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, marital divorce, problems with kids. They can't handle it because, again, they didn't go through the process. And so now their blessings are like curses. It wasn't God given. And so it's going to just kind of just seep through like how does the Bible say it? Like, if you have a hole in your pocket, a hole in your money bag. And I even have to catch myself too, because they say, like, no more money, more problems. And I messaged you this morning with yesterday, like, you always think, if I just hit this much, if I get this raise, I'll be happy. And then you get there and you're fine for a bit. And then you're like, okay, God, if I hit this much, I'll be happy. If I hit this much, my worries will go away. And again, you get there, you're like hustling. You get there, it's for a little bit. And then again, and it's like the money isn't going to change. And I have not been complaining about money for a while. And then I got my wisdom teeth removed and my morning routine kind of like I got, thrown off. And I opened up my prayer journal and I was like, oh my God, I've been reading my Bible, but in my prayer journal, I opened it up and I was like, wow, my last entry was last Thursday, right before I got my wisdom teeth removed. And I was like, oh my gosh, it makes sense. Because as soon as I wrote, like, I got my prayer journal and the first thing that came was like, God, forgive me. Like, my heart has been ungrateful. Like, I've been complaining to David that I need more money this summer when I have more money than I've ever had in my life. Like, why am I saying I need more? And I was writing my prayer journal, like, asking God for forgiveness and telling him everything I'm grateful for, how he's been so good to me. And I texted you, I'm like, David, I'm so sorry. Like, and I wasn't even like in a bad mood yesterday. It was just like, God, kind of like lightheartedly, like, David, I don't have enough. I never have enough. But I immediately, like, going into God's presence is like the money is never the problem. It's like, what am I focused on? What is my heart set on? Like, that's what the issue is. And thank God I caught myself and I was like, okay, I definitely need to be starting my mornings with prayer, because it just sets my focus, what matters in life. Because I hated that feeling of like, I don't have enough. I don't have enough. You feel like you're like, there's no point into what you're doing. Like, what you're doing is pointless, because you're just going to end up feeling unfulfilled. That's a horrible way to live. And so that was my rant.
Yeah. And I think the best thing that we can do, that anybody can do, is surrender their life to God, really, each and every day, and just surrender and be like, mold me however you want to mold me, you know. And I think that could be even a topic of you journaling, of like, I think it's one thing for you to pray, and I feel like sometimes we get into such a routine where it's just like, okay, we say the same words every single day, like, thank you for this, thank you for that, sorry for this, sorry for that, may you bless my, you know, my day, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's the same words. But I feel like it does like take a different type of intention to actually write in a journal or something. Just be like, these are my exact thoughts. Like, for you to write them, it's like, I guess, more tangible. It's less of a routine. Like, it's more like you really, I guess for some people, it might be a different connection between you and God. Because I've noticed that when you do journal, like, it's different. Like, your attitude is just different. Your mindset is different.
He's like, are you gonna pray today?
No, but yeah, that could, like, different ways of connecting with God could be a different episode.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
But the point is, like, yeah, surrendering to God and just allowing Him to mold us. Because if we really do surrender to God, like, and allow Him to mold us the way that He wants to mold us, to make us more like Jesus, like, our life will be blessed. And again, this is not a prosperity gospel. That does not mean that you're going to become a millionaire in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, could it be? Maybe. Could it be? Not. Maybe not. Like, but could He bless your business because your mindset changed 100%? Could He bless your family because your mindset changed and your heart changed 100%? Like, us trusting God and having faith in Him and allowing Him to mold us can bless us in many different ways, where, again, I said it at the beginning, like, our circumstance might not change by a perspective change. And so now we have a newfound peace through that circumstance, because we know that God is with us, because we know that He's given us stewardship, because He's given us authority, because He's given us knowledge, because He's pouring out His blessing over us. Like, there's so many things that can change our perspective. Like what you said today, yesterday you had one mindset, and today you woke up and you wrote in your journal and you got a different mindset of the same circumstance. And so that in itself is beautiful. And I think, I guess we really just talked about how to gain God's favor. And it's really just about allowing Him to mold us, and allowing Him to mold us and to make us more wise, more knowledgeable, more generous, and understanding that planting seeds is very important, for the kingdom of God. And also, like, God sees that, and the people that you bless see that as well. And maybe they come back and they bless you back. Maybe they don't. Or maybe all you need to hear is, hey, like, maybe 10 years down the road, they come back and like, hey, remember that time that you helped me? From that moment, my life changed. And this is what my life is. And for me personally, just to hear something like that just breaks me down. And I'm like, God, like, you allowed me to be part of this, like, story. Yeah. That's so beautiful. And honestly, like, being on your deathbed, nobody ever says, like, I wish I had more money. I wish I did more in my business. I wish I hustled more, grinded more. Usually people are more fulfilled by the people that surrounded them. People are more fulfilled by more meaningful relationships that they had, things that they did, philanthropy, like, all those things are way more fulfilling, because I think on your deathbed, you kind of realize it was more than just about me. Mm-hmm. It was about all of this, you know? And so, yeah, is there anything that you want to add?
Yes, but I know you're like,
No, go ahead.
Well, the one that even historians, like, as a social studies teacher, that they give credit to spreading the gospel is Apostle Paul. Mm-hmm. Like, Paul was the one that led the church, because Jesus didn't go outside of like where he was for the most part, but the one who like took it from Rome and beyond to Asia Minor and things like that was Paul. And it's crazy because he says in Philippians, right, a lot of people quote like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, but he says it in the context of, I know what it is to have and I know what it is to not have.
Mm-hmm.
But he was never like where think about the part where it says, I know what it is to not have, like wasteful or not being a good steward or saying that because of bad decisions. Like, we're talking about a man where I believe is with Thessalonians, because I'm reading the New Testament, and I apologize because all of his letters are short and they kind of blend together. So I believe it's in Thessalonians, but don't quote me on that. But he's talking about how he is visiting a church to share the good news. But it says that he is still working because he does not want to be a burden to the people. And he's writing this letter to them like, so make sure you guys are busybodies and, you know, you live the quiet life, but you're busy and you're not burdening other people. And that shocked me because it's like, he says, it's my right. I could be living off of them. He says, that's my right. Mm-hmm. And you have the right, like if you're going to go pastor, for example, or be a guest speaker, you have the right. And a lot of people take it of, you asked me to come here, now like feed me, you know, maybe pay me extra, whatever. And he had that right, but he decides like, I'm here with the right intention. Like, I just want to bless them so much. I'm just going to work like on the side. So you don't have to worry about it. So this can be pure blessing. You don't have to stress about it. And so I can be a good steward and make my side money to just survive, you know. Like, he wasn't like hustling, like I have to go to church and then I have to hustle and like, because it's the grind. He was doing it purely out of like, I have to travel, I have to meet my life. And it just baffles me that man, like, Christianity is what it is today because God knew that Paul was going to be like the beheader of this Christian Gentile movement. And how many seeds did he spread that has from generations to generations given? And again, it wasn't anything like, oh, I have to be a hustler, but it was like, I just want to bless. And whatever I can do to bless and be with others and not be a burden to them, I am going to. Yeah. So I just had that thought as you were speaking. I was like, Paul was an amazing man. Like, he didn't have to do that, but he did. Just great example.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, don't expect anything back when we plant something, because that could be a breaker of relationships. You know, like especially like, let's say, just a hypothetical situation. I help my brother out, and then with the thought of like, oh, I have something coming up in like a month or two, and I'm gonna need his help. And I ask him for his help, and he's like, I can't. And I'm over here like, I just helped you like last month. How come you can't help me now? You know, like having that mindset, like you did it with the wrong intentions. Yeah. Like that right there, that situation, if you get angry about it, like that right there just shows the heart that you, like the heart posture that you had while helping your brother, let's say. Right. And so I just wanted to reiterate that just in case somebody, you know, might be thinking like, oh yeah, I'm just going to spread all these seeds and then they're going to come back in like a couple of weeks and they're going to like tenfold or whatever. Like, no. That's not kingdom mindset. Bless. It says it's better to give than to receive. Give. It might come back, it might not.
Or it might come back to your other generations.
To my other generations. It might come back from other people. It might come back from other ways that God. It might not be the same way. Maybe you gave $10 and maybe you're expecting $10 back. No, maybe those $10 turn into like God opening a certain door or whatever. You know, like it's just all with the principle of you need to have the heart posture of I'm going to help and I'm going to bless. That's a seed that I'm going to plant. But it's not really even my seed, actually. It's a seed of God. God gave me this blessing to be able to bless others. And that purpose right there is to help out the kingdom. It's not to help out me. But I still believe like having that right heart and that right mindset will open God's favor over your life. And at the end of it, help you with the purpose that God gave you this whole time. So yeah, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. Today, I got a little emotional thinking about, you know, how far we've come, and that's all thanks to God, honestly. And we give all glory and all honor to God. We cannot take any of the credit. a lot of our story, and that's why we talk about it. A lot of our story has been those moments where it's like, there's no way that we could take credit for this.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. And so, I guess we're kind of like a living testimony of like when we surrender our lives to God, like he shows up, he's faithful, and he's carried us this far. And I know he's got more stuff planned for us. And so we just hope that we can continue to allow him to mold us, mold our minds, our thoughts, our hearts. And our prayers are that you guys can do the same thing. And you guys will see how God makes the way in your life.
Yeah.
So thank you again. This is episode 21. If you liked it, please put a thumbs up, comment, follow, subscribe, share. It would bless us a lot. And we really appreciate all the feedback, all the love that we've been receiving. We thank you. That's very humbling as well. And we love you guys. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.